Hey, welcome. In this video, we're going to cover a lot. We're going to start off by what programming language should you learn first in 2019 to get a job. Then we're going to talk about my story and what got me into programming, so it could give you a lot of context around programming and why maybe you should get into it. We're going to talk about web development and why I recommend that you actually learn it. I think it's actually one of the easiest and fastest things to get into. I'm going to talk about how I learned to code in less than 3 months and you can steal my framework to leverage it for yourself. 2 powerful secrets of learning and shortcutting your success. We're going to talk about leveraging risk to maximize growth, becoming a freelancer, work-life balance, and the 80-20 rule that I have on consumption versus creation as a developer that will make a big impact, and the #1 habit that successful developers must have. This is also cut out from a podcast I did with Ben McNeill, which was phenomenal. So for a lot of this, I'm gonna cut to that podcast. I really hope you enjoy it. Let's jump right into it. Well, that's done.
That was it, baby. You're a one-take wonder.
What made you jump on with Python? Because I was researching kind of like some of your early videos on your YouTube channel that's basically like exploded.
Yeah.
It looked like you were dabbling with R. I mean, you could have gone a lot of different ways. JavaScript is like, the web language. So
yeah.
How did you land on Python?
I picked Python because of the dumbest reason ever in the start. I picked it because I felt like when I didn't know anything about coding, okay? I'm talking about like when I did not even know what coding meant. And when I wanted to jump into it, I looked up programming languages and I picked the one that I thought the least amount of people would know about, and it had the coolest logo. So I have like this very elitist mentality, because I wanted to be sitting in a conversation with somebody and just go, yeah, I code in Python. And they just go, what the fuck? I just wanted to elicit that response from somebody. That was my initial beginning of how I got into why I chose Python. Later, as time progressed, I started understanding coding, I started understanding Python, then I learned Java, then I learned JavaScript and all these other programming languages. I started realizing I'm like, Python is literally the easiest way to start. Like JavaScript, there are so many ways for you to fuck up. Like, it's a language on the web. You're not only dealing with the difficulty of learning the programming language itself, you're now also dealing with the difficulty of getting it to work on the web. So some features might not work on Chrome versus Safari, or they introduced this new thing called ES6. And in JavaScript, it's unbelievable how many new things are introduced and there are like 20 different ways of doing the same thing. So it's a great programming language, but if you're a beginner, it's much more likely to confuse you. Same thing I thought about C++ and C. I'm like, you're literally trying to write hello world and you have to create classes, know how to compile code, no terminal. Like, what the like, nobody's gonna learn this. Nobody's gonna be able to understand this. And with Python, you can run it anywhere. You need 1 line of code to start it. Most computers, like especially MacBooks, come installed with it. And then I started really learning about that. It's like the easiest programming language in the world, and all the universities are switching over to it. It's one of the fastest growing programming languages in the world, and now it really is. It's like 2018, it was more Googled more than Kim Kardashian. So that should tell you something, right? I gotta make a video on that still. And people like Google is built off of Python, Instagram is built off of Python, Spotify is built off of Python, Quora, Hitmonk, Dropbox, all of these are actually built from Python. Sergey Brin, who's the co-founder of Google, says, Python where we can, C where we must.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Python.
Man.
When I was 12, my family got into a car crash. And my mom's 2 back discs, they got dislocated. And what ended up happening was none of my family members, my dad who was doing two jobs at the time, my brother who was working 2 shifts at the time, and both of my brothers actually, and they were grinding. And none of us were able to actually afford for her surgery. So none of us were able to actually get her that surgery, and that she needed to fix her back. And over the course of 10 years, I watched that happen for a really long time, and I loved my mom, but I was never able to actually help her in any way. and then none of my family members could really help her. So I'm like, man, if these people who are doing the 2 jobs and they're grinding and they have their software development degrees and they're doing everything right, and they can't help somebody who we love so much, I'm like, I have to figure out some different way. And that's when I started jumping into the world of programming.
Well, so it was kind of like by accident, or you just like were you like I know you had some background in chess,
Yeah.
so you kind of have that logical mind.
Yeah.
Was it like something online that just like, hey, this is a way to do it? You can be your own self-made person and kind of write your own paychecks. Like how exactly did that work for you?
So, yeah, that's for me. It was like I needed to figure out a different way of doing things. So, in the start, it started off. Yes, I have a background in chess. I played that, and ended up becoming. I mean, I worked my ass off every day. I had a great coach too, so thanks to him. But I was able to become top 1% in the world in chess in three years time. I put in like 15 hours a day, so I have that obsessive, mentality in that nature. Then I eventually switched over to programming. Initially, when I got into it, it was how I got introduced to it was my brother called me and he said, "Hey, programmers are making like over $100,000 a year coming right out of their colleges." I was like, "That's fantastic. I need to learn more about this." Then once I got into programming and I got into coding, I realized that I actually loved it. I really enjoyed it because it was a perfect mixture of what, like chess is, people think it's all analytical. It's not true. It's a perfect combination of analytical and creative, and it's the two mixed together. That's how I see coding is. And it's really brilliant. You can take something from your brain, from your mind, and you code it up and then it turns into a reality. Like for example, when you type in facebook.com, it's almost as if you are entering the universe of Mark Zuckerberg and now you're spending time in that universe. It's pretty crazy. Like Instagram, like Boom, or whatever other website, you're entering those people's worlds that they created, they thought of, they dreamed of, and everybody's using them on a daily basis. And that is what actually got me hooked to programming.
And you were talking about the web and how kind of adding that extra layer. I mean, that struggle is real.
Yeah.
Like how did you kind of like chunk that down? Because you're learning, like the web is almost its own animal. So because you basically specialize. You have the Profitable Programmer. That's your flagship product that you sell, and that's like a whole like web app.
So the web world is very, very different, and there are a lot of new elements you have to learn. In my own world, like if we're not talking about the business world and my just learning of coding, I tackled first just learning the basics of Python, becoming really good at it. So problem solving, creating games, solving games like 15 or whatnot. Then I moved into, adding in an additional layer of complexity, which is like, now I'm gonna learn Heroku, and now I'm gonna, because I was like, how do I host an app online? And then I learned, it's like Heroku allows you to do that. Then I'm like, how do I write code in Python that I can like host online? And then I learned Django. And then I'm like, man, every time I do something with my app, like things just go away. What do I do? And then I learned, you need a database to save things. And I'm like, Postgres, that's a database, like a memory card that allows you to save things. So that's what was happening in the start for me to actually jump into the world of, and I just started off by creating my own apps that I enjoyed. So I was doing a lot of private lessons one-on-one with people, and I was always losing track of like, if I worked with Ben, how many lessons have I taught with Ben? Like how much has Ben paid me versus like Frankie, how much has Frankie paid me? How many sessions have I had? So I wanted to make my own, and everything I looked up online, whether it was like Square or other invoicing apps, they were all either too many features or too few features. So I started building something on my own, and that was like super fast. But what it allowed me to do was, one, pursue a passion project, and then I got to learn Django and Flask and Postgres and how Jinja templating works and HTML and CSS and JavaScript and Python. Like I was just building the things I needed to build, so then it didn't matter what I had to Google to learn it, and in the process I learned way more than if I would just like watch tutorials,
Right.
So that is the answer to how I navigated the waters in my personal life. And in my online program, which is like, I think it's 160 hours now, Profitable Programmer. That program, that's why it took a year to create, because I wanted to make sure that somebody who's going through that journey, they're going through that journey in a way that I went through that journey, like going from basics of Python to actually really understanding the web development aspect of it, along with like how do I freelance and earn an income from it, because those pieces are a lot of the times not tied together by people for whatever reason.
So you were talking about going through the gauntlet there, or can you just put a little color on that?
Yeah, so sleep-wise, honestly, I was going about 15 hours a day to 18 hours a day when I was coding. So like on my YouTube videos, I'll have like, you can learn coding in 3 months and actually start earning an income. And then a lot of people will be like, this is so inspirational, it's cool. But then I'll have people who'll be like, this is bullshit. Like, you can't do that, that's impossible. And I'm like, oh man, like I forgot to mention the hard work aspect of it. Like, oh, I should have added that. Because what they're thinking is I'm spending 1 hour a week, and then 3 months
Right.
in, I'm like, no, I'm spending like 18 hours a day coding. So my 3 months are like somebody's like 2 years, 3 years.
Right.
So that's the timeline that's being, but I'm proud of it that I grind it, but I'm not proud of, like, I had to sacrifice a lot of things. I had to sacrifice literally a life, of like doing other stuff.
Yeah.
But I enjoy operating in these obsessive cycles. So I remember I would go with my best friend Tenzin, who now runs a YouTube channel called What's Dev, and he started, I started my YouTube channel, then he was like, oh, this is cool. Then he started teaching his own stuff, and we used to go to this co-working space called PS1, which we had found from meetup.com, and we would literally be in this space for we would get there sometimes at like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. and then we would leave, I kid you not, at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. the next day. So we'd literally be there for 12 hours straight, then go home, then still code, sleep a little bit, come back. We had all these people who would like go there and come back, and we would still like, we would just be there all the time, no matter if they came in at night or daytime. They're like, do you guys ever leave? And we're like, no, not really. It's just convenient that we're here. And I remember we would be up until like 3, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and the whole thing, everything that we drank was just this thing, which I'm showing. For the audio people who are listening to this, it's a Monster. I'm showing him a Monster. This is the low carb Monster, because at some point we realized we were intaking way too much sugar. So that was actually our replacement for water. And we just took that. We barely ate food. We ate like once a day, which I don't recommend. But it allowed us to really focus, really grind. And even if you don't follow that path of doing it 18 hours a day, most people can put in 8 to 10 hours a day. People are just sometimes scared to put in that amount of work.
Yeah, so you were talking about like if they got plugged into the right training programs, like could you shed a little color on that?
Yeah, so I think that you have to get good at failing fast. You have to get really good at failing really, really fast. Like there are a lot of people who have worked way harder than me for a way longer of a time and actually grind more than I do. But my results might be better than some of theirs, or somebody else's results who's working even less than I am are probably better than mine. But one thing that they're doing really well is they're intelligently failing fast. So if you want to start your own business and you're like, right before I start the business, like let me actually go and take this course from Coursera. It's a 3-month course. It talks about logos and colors and branding for like literally 3 fucking months. and let me go through that, and then I'll try to build my business. No, just like start something the day after. Like go to Shopify.com, buy a domain name, put up a shirt, then go on Instagram and just go, hey, I'm selling this shirt for $8, and see if somebody bites on your personal Instagram, and then go to Facebook and say if somebody bites. Those 3 months you will learn so fast. It didn't mean you worked harder. As a matter of fact, you might have actually even worked less harder. But this is, but what you will gain in those 3 months versus the 3 months of you passively consuming content from a Coursera university professor who's never ran his own business in his whole life, you know, like you're not gonna learn. Like you're not gonna get. More is caught than taught. So somebody who's teaching you but hasn't done it, like it won't actually make an impact in that much of an impact in your life. So one, fail really fast. I remember when I was about to start Clever Programmer 2016, I told Tenzin, my best friend at that time, I mean he still is, I told him, I'm like, 2017 we have to fail 30 business ideas. That was our entire goal for 2017. We're like, we have to fail 30 business ideas this year. And that expectation, then even like getting any amount of traction, like I remember when I would get 2 subscribers for my YouTube channel, dude, I would run around in my underwear in my entire house screaming at the top of my fucking lungs. And my parents would be like, what the hell is wrong with you? But they would like love me and then hug me. And then I would call my brothers like, oh my God, 3 subscribers today, this is insane. So,
nice.
But my attitude was like, I'm going to fail for 30 businesses before I succeed because it's a skill worth having. So why should I succeed the first time? But I think where people fail is that whenever they're trying to pick up a new skill like programming, coding, web development, business, they are like, I've never done it, but I should just succeed the first time. And if they don't, they oftentimes quit. So that's one. Now, more intelligent ways of getting there faster, 100% mentorship, 1000%. Like what I would do is every time I would teach a chess lesson and I would charge $35 or $50 for an hour, I wanted to learn coding. Then when I would go home, I would hire somebody on codementor.io and pay them $35 to $50 an hour for them to teach me coding. Because I realized that when you have somebody teaching you the correct, like I learned this lesson because I spent 3 years playing ping pong. Then I went to a coach and he told me that it actually would have been better if I played no ping pong those 3 years, because he says that I'd been like forming these really deeply ingrained poor habits that were like biologically programmed into my being. Unwiring that takes a lot of time. So we spent the next year practicing table tennis, literally unwiring my poor habits. So, I mean, the benefit that you get from getting mentorship is like you will get to the place you want to go so fast. So whether it's your friend, somebody on meetup.com, somebody you hire from Code Mentor or Upwork or Fiverr.com, like mentorship will really help you get there a lot faster.
Okay, and it really sounds there's a component.
Actively, I'm a big proponent of that, because every time, then when I started charging $100 an hour for my chess lessons, I would go back and I'd be like, that buys me 2 hours of a developer's time. And we're talking about a developer that has 10 years of experience. I have 0 years of experience. By trading time and money, I'm getting to his level a lot faster.
Right, yeah.
That's all. I'm not going the wrong way, then the wrong way, then like this way, then the wrong way, and then finally after 30 years getting to where he's at, I'm literally getting there a lot faster.
As far as like business building and family goes, there's some sort of balance there. How did you manage that?
So I don't do a good job of managing it. I don't want to teach something that I don't know, but I'll share my personal experience. One thing I'm getting better at is I try to see my parents. They're in Chicago, so I try to see them a few times a year. So here's the big thing that I've realized. You can spend a lot of like really low quality time with the other person throughout the year, and it actually won't mean much. And I'm talking about like you could spend 8 hours a day with them, and it actually won't mean that much. But if you can get really good at cutting through the bullshit and spending deep, high quality time with the person, that will change the experience and relationship and influence their lives and your lives at a much deeper level. And so then you actually need very little time, and you will still feel very, very connected with those people. So for example, when I saw my mom and my dad this time, in my whole life I've never really just told them exactly how much I love them, exactly how much I appreciate the sacrifices my dad has made for me, leaving Pakistan when he was a president of a UBL bank to come to the United States, work as a security guard, because he wanted us to have better opportunities. Like literally telling him that and thanking him, like, I appreciate the shit out of you, like thank you for doing this, and I will never forget it. And then my dad and I crying and hugging it out. That level of depth is actually more than I feel like me spending a year long with them. So to me, that was super powerful. Same thing with my mom, and then even when I see my brother, whenever I get to see him. So if you can take these really seriously and treat these relationships as like tomorrow they'll just be gone, because they actually might be. If you give your heart in the 24 hours or 48 hours or the 1 week or 2 weeks you spend with them throughout the whole year, that goes really, really far. So that is my way of quote unquote balancing it.
How has your relationship with money changed through this transformation?
So it changed a lot, because I used to be just like my, family, where they would be like, they never wanted to talk about money. Money was a source of like most problems, like bills was money. The next time we would talk about money was like my brother's not paying their debts and my dad like scolding them. My middle brother's credit score being like super low. Every time we had a conversation with our parents, it was some kind of problem. A lot of times it was like some kind of problem around money. So my experience with money, my relationship wasn't all that great. But then as I started realizing and making my own money and earning an income, because I'm like, I want to make enough for myself and I want to have enough to help other people around me, And when that started happening, I started realizing that here's what money does. Money amplifies who you are. So if you're an asshole with a lot of money, you have the capability to be a much bigger asshole, right? If you're an amazing human being, you can be even more of an amazing human being with money. It doesn't change you, it just exposes you. It just magnifies who you are. That's one. The second thing is that money is pretty directly proportional in my worldview to freedom. Because what happens with me is if I'm getting money from my parents, or if I'm getting money from my family, or I'm getting money from the government, or I'm getting money from a job or whatever, I have to abide by those rules. I have to like live by those rules permanently. That is not freedom to me. That means I have to be afraid of I told you so for the rest of my life. I have to like, but having money, I can choose to fuck up in my own ways. I can make mistakes on my own, and they're not gonna hurt your bank account, Ben. They're not gonna hurt my parents' bank account. They're not gonna hurt my brother's bank. They're gonna hurt my bank account. It allows me to take leadership, and it allows me to really just be free.
What do you think was the scariest part of that transformation?
Specifically, what transformation?
So you basically were like, I'm going to start feeling faster than I've ever failed before.
Yeah.
I mean, did at any point where you're like, I feel like I'm jumping off of a cliff without a parachute? Like, were you looking at death in the eyes? Was there any, like, what was kind of like a scary moment for that transformation looking back now?
Yeah, so this is where you have to be really self-aware, because I'm more risk tolerant than most people.
Okay.
My default is like very, very pro risk. I love risk. So so this advice would work for that type of person, you know. So for example, what I did when I started seeing very little traction on my YouTube, like very little. I don't even think I had 500 subscribers yet, or maybe 1,000 subscribers at this point. What I did was I said, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I went and I was making maybe $8,000 to $10,000 a month at that point. I was 2019, something like that. Oh no, sorry, 2022. 21, 22, because that was right around when I was 2016, end of 2016. And I'm like, okay, what I'm gonna do is go to every single client and stop working with them. So I went and canceled working with every single client, and I effectively dropped my income from $8,000 to $10,000 a month to probably $1,000 a month or less, like nearing $0. That's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was I bought an office and a bunch of shit on credit card. Like I didn't have any money saved up. But like my iMac, I bought my iMac. I bought this mic. I'm still actually using this mic. I bought a bunch of lights that I'm actually still using. And all that stuff was on credit cards, and then I bought an office space per month. So I went crazy on expenses, monthly expenses. I dropped my income to zero, and because what I realized was I'm sitting on a golden opportunity and I can feel it, but unless I have like insane biological pressure behind me, which will like literally like existential crisis, I will not maximize the upward trend of this opportunity. I will be complacent, and I will get these results in 12 years long time span. Whereas if I really buckle down and just add in this pressure, I will get these results in a much shorter time.
Crazy. So you chose to walk the plank, basically.
Yeah.
Or that's kind of the situation you put yourself in.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So regarding
I take pretty calculated risks. I'm also not like Logan Paul crazy. I love Logan Paul. He's incredible. But he is somebody who is like a million times more risk averse than I am, and I admire him for that. For myself, like I take, even though I'm more on the side of risk, I still take calculated risk. So what I was trying to do in that time was replace the income from my online audience, because I knew once I could do that, that would be permanent. So what I started doing was I started calling people from the Clever Programmer audience, and I was like, hey, do you want to do one-on-one sessions with me? And I was like offering it for really low, so I would just keep getting people. So somebody was like, sure, I'll pay you like $35. Somebody was like, sure, we'll do it for $50. And I kept landing these like one-on-one clients from within Clever Programmer, and then I started to launch my products. So in the first year of Clever Programmer, we did $211,000 in the business, November 2017, and
that's awesome.
That was because I learned how to like do product launches and learn email marketing. So yeah, there was like, it wasn't that gung-ho. It was like I spent a lot of time researching and strategically understanding what I am, what I'm doing. So email marketing and all those things were a huge part of like making my risk very data driven.
Some people are not as well versed in executing.
So the same reason why if I got into a fight with the Mountain, he's in Game of Thrones and he's also the world's strongest man, I would not even try, because I know it'll be worthless. I think that's the same reason why people don't execute, because they think that in the end it's gonna not amount to anything. And the reason why this happens is that I believe that people consume, think about doing, and when they're about to actually do, somebody in their very shaky stage somebody like their wife or their teacher or their brother or their mom questions them, or goes like, what you're doing actually doesn't seem like the smartest thing, like you should be focused on this, and they crack right away, they break, you know. And constantly fighting against that resistance is very, very difficult. So what ends up taking place is you're exercising your consumption muscles a lot, right? Which is why everybody's so good at consumption. Like you and I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem consuming something for 8 hours. I'm actually starting to have a problem around that. I actually start feeling like I have to, like if I don't execute on something, I feel like I have to, like let's say you and I talk about, for 40 minutes, we talk about starting our podcast, or we talk about podcasts for 40 whole minutes. If after that conversation, right around that time, we don't actually start doing something, I will literally feel like I have to puke. And like like it can't be your friend anymore. Like I'm like, okay, we're not executing. We're spending so much time just talking about this. So, but let me get back to what I was saying. We develop really strong muscles of consumption, but our muscle memory of creation is very weak. Okay, so like let me ask you personally, how much do you value creation versus consumption? If you can put it into percentages for me?
Oh, I am totally, well, man, this is a tough question because there's very little effort to consume, and so if I'm not careful, I will consume. But there is, that's why I love programming so much, is because I get to create these things and release them to the wild. But as far as like tutorials go, like if I'm not engaging, I could watch programming tutorials and try and skill up that way, but somewhere down the line, like you've got to like create something.
Yeah.
And
but you specifically, like, would you say you're valuing consumption 30%, 80%, and then creation 20%?
That's a good question. I think, that's I probably would. It's heavier on the consumption side.
Right, and that's how it is.
Like 60-70%.
Okay. Is that what you're actually doing, or is that how you value it? Do you personally value consumption more? Like if I just asked you that question and I asked you about your beliefs, do you value consumption more or creation more? Not what you're actually doing.
Right. No, so this might be like a really poor analogy, but like I actually get high off of creating things.
Good.
Like that is my drug. Like releasing awesome little code robots into the wild, that is what really just fuels me.
So in reality, you value creation more, okay? We're not talking about what you're doing, but we all, not all, but like mostly, like if I'm asking you personally, you value creation more. But then if you map it to your actual time in your day-to-day basis, what you'll see is your actions are 70 to 80% consumption, and your creation is at 20 to 30%. So your value, it might not be mapping to your actual reality. And this happens to all of us. This happens to me too. And this is the problem that we have to break out of. And the reason why this happens is we practice consumption so much, but we practice execution so little. We get into a habit of only consuming and not executing. So for example, one way to start it for most people is, I remember every single time I was going through a coding tutorial, not literally every time, but a lot of the times when I'm going through a coding tutorial, I'll have my computer side by side and I'll be coding it up. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting my time watching that tutorial. And I also think that your learning increases way more. Like let's say that, Ben, you had to build an application that had to be posted, like an invoicing app or something. The first thing most people would do is like start researching what would be great and what would make you learn so well is if you actually spent the next 36 hours creating it, not in a row, but in the next 36 hours creating over the course of a week or 2 weeks, let's say, creating this, and then going to watch tutorials around like what you didn't know. Then you'll pick up a lot more too. So if we practice our exercising muscles a lot more and that becomes our default, you will create a lot of amazing things in the world, because we all have the potential for that. You know, you're already creating this incredible podcast, and most people have the ability to create something incredible. This just requires a habit change. Like, not only can you be a YouTube consumer, you can be a creator. Like, that's a weird switch.
With regards to habits, so you know what, because you've worked with a lot of students, you've seen transformations in a lot of people. What is like these habits that seems to be a recurring theme with the people that really, you know, start from ground zero and lift off, or they basically become from intermediate to mastery? Like, what is a recurring theme with their habits?
Yeah, the biggest recurring theme that I could say about the students who are going on to succeed really, really well are the students who are executing like maniacs, like literally like maniacal execution. There's this one Jabara, his Instagram is JUBARA underscore Abdullah, so ABDALLAH. This guy who is in our profitable programmer course, like he's in all of the courses actually, he just executes non-stop. So like I mentioned that you should have a Instagram and a YouTube channel and document your coding journey. He just started doing it. So now what's going to happen is not only is he going to be increasing as a developer, but he's literally building his brand. A year from now, 2 years from now, he's going to have 50,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 subscribers. Like, it's just a fact. Like, he's gonna have the potential to make $200,000, $300,000 a year if he chooses to. Like, the opportunities in this modern world where we have the power of internet, you don't have to go through the ladder of like, first get this degree, then get this degree, then get this junior developer job, then you get a senior. Like, no, fuck that. Like, you actually can increase on your pure merit, not on some kind of bureaucracy. So he is a massive executor, and a lot of the students who succeed, they're massive executors. Like, for example, we'll be in a coaching call and I'll be like, hey, I'll make a profile on Wyzant, take lessons, and start tutoring. Like, you can charge $50 an hour, and the next time I speak with them, they have the profiles up already. 2 weeks from that time, they're text messaging me that they've gotten clients. Whereas I have another student who has watched every single one of my tutorials, has spent 160 hours consuming my content, is watching every single YouTube video I've ever produced, but they don't have a single app. They're better than all of these other people, skill-wise, but they don't have a profile that they've made, they don't have a YouTube channel, they're not creating apps. And you know, if a tree falls in the forest, no one's there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. If a developer doesn't make a fucking app, he's not a developer.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's legit, man. Man, so I had kind of like a little lightning round for you.
Awesome.
So I'm personally fascinated about this. I'm sure some other people are, but just like the behavior of top performers. So, you know, when you kick your day off, like, what is non-negotiable for you in that morning routine?
I have done lots of morning routines. What I've realized is I'm very random. So like,
okay,
it's gonna be a shitty answer, but like, I don't have a morning routine. Sometimes I do. Like, I'm watching too much Matt D'Avella and like reading too much about meditation books. So like, then in that time frame, 1 to 2 month period, I'll have a morning routine. It really helps me having a morning routine. Like, if I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I shower and then I like write and then I drink my coffee, helps tremendously, you know, going to the gym. But right now I'm trying to keep it at, like, my mind is on production and everything, and it's just not my habit to focus on it. So my real answer is like, I don't have a morning routine. If you want to become a developer, you don't have to wait 9 years to get a degree and PhDs and then go looking. You can literally today, make a post on Craigslist. Like, I'll charge you $15 an hour. I can teach you coding. I have 3 months of experience. Or you can do, I am a local website builder and this is my rate, $20 an hour. Like, you can reach out to me, contact me, here's my phone number. Or you can actually start calling or physically going to local businesses around you to help them. So if you but I promise most people aren't even spending 5% of their week on this, right? Whereas they should be spending 80% of their week on finding jobs and clients and work. And honestly, 20% of your week should be consumption, which is actually improving your coding skills and consuming content and tutorials. I hope you took a lot out of it and we covered a lot. I have always wanted to put something together where you could get massive value out of something and go through this entire experience from zero to learning how to freelance and to be able to land clients and learn how to code. And I put together this 3-part masterclass that is absolutely free for you. I put it in the link below. You can go on it, pop in your email, and I will send you the 3-part training. It will teach you how to freelance, it will teach you coding skills, it will give you a free portfolio, a calculator, and a whole lot of other cool things, and help you accelerate towards your success in your career. As always, this is Qazi. I love your face. I'll see you in the next video.